Court. Thank you so much for joining us here on Get Out of the Boat. I have Miss Keturah Thompson here who is going to talk to us a little bit about her struggles and her journey as a Christian and as we move forward in our faith. Let me read our scripture for today is John 16:33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. I was sharing with you that that's the scripture that I always meditate on when I'm in my why me kind of phase. And I think, life is being a little heavy handed and how I get to a place where I can at least be able to have a conversation with God because I know he's not individually picking me out for any battle or any struggle. But I wanted us to definitely touch base and talk because you have a very interesting story. So start from the beginning. You were telling us that you were born in the church.
In the beginning, I was born. So yeah, when I left St. Luke's Hospital, April 13, 1990, I guarantee you I was in church that Sunday. My grandmother taught Sunday school. My grandmother went to second service. My parents went to my mom went to first service. Church was not optional for me growing up
at all.
I didn't have I didn't have rights, and I don't think I still have them now. Church was not optional. It got to a point where I wanted to go. And then when I look back now on the years, church saved my life. Like East Mount Zion, I don't want to say the physical building, but the body, East Mount Zion saved my life. When a lot of my peers were out in the world and dibbling and dabbling and this and that, I was in drill team. I was in youth choir. I was in youth ministry. I was youth ministry president. I honestly, and I didn't get a chance to thank Reverend Gaston the last time I saw him. I was 10 years old. My mother used to drop us off at church, and then she would go back home and take care of my grandmother. So we would leave church. And one Sunday, I'm sneaking back in the front door so I could come out the side door so my mother would see me. And Reverend Gaston had been hounding me down for weeks about this drill thing. You're not about to be yelling at me. You absolutely not about to be yelling at me. So he's walking up and I'm walking down. You remember what size I was when I was 10? I dove under the pews in the back and I doggy crawled all the way to the front. And when I get to the front, he's standing there. He was like, Sister Thompson, can I talk to you for a second?
For a minute. Like, what you doing?
Here I am just celebrating my 21st year in the drill team. I don't even ask me where the time went.
I don't know. I love drill team.
When I say I love my team, I love the ministry. I just do.
I think real talk, that's the only time I knew all 52 books of the Bible in order the whole night. Like, I might have to go back and rethink. Yeah.
We're always looking for matrons.
Okay, you can have Jordy. She can boss somebody around real quick.
That's good. But yeah, I grew up in East Mount Zion, went to inner city schools, dibbled and dabbled in college. I guess you call me a professional college student. I did not finish my degree for no other reason. I just didn't want to. Kicked it in my 20s. That's when I realized, oh yeah, I need to get a regular job because I would quit a job in a heartbeat. I would work this job and that and that. I've always had a passion for people. Always worked with people. I was the youngest group home owner in the state of Ohio. So when I graduated high school in 2007, my mother had a group home. She was sick, so I just went ahead and took over it. And mental health just came easy to me. I don't know if it's because I grew up in East Mount Zion or in the inner city, but mental health just came easy to me. And even in my field now, I've been in mental health / case management for the last 10 years of my career. So that's Keturah in a nutshell.
All right. So recently at church, we have a new pastor because our old pastor passed away. And recently at church, we have been having these intergenerational meetings and kind of discussions amongst young women. And you shared in one of those meetings that you had contemplated suicide.
Yes.
And that it was actually one of our sisters from church that called your phone, right? Like right before. Tell us about that. It gives me tingles when I remember, but you tell it.
I ain't cried all day, Stephanie.
Well, we might cry a little bit, but that's all right.
The last I can say now the last 6, 7 years have been the hardest years of my life. It's like wave after wave after wave. Um, that particular day, I mean, I had met my end. I was done. I was finished. I was working at the board of election, and I had walked off the line. It was
Mhm.
election season. We were counting back. I had walked off the line. And if you know where the Board of Election is on 30th, there's a freeway that's probably literally like a block and a half away from there. I walked out of work, walked to the overpass, and there was no thoughts behind me. It was only forward. I said, God, if I jump, just don't let it hurt. Just don't let it hurt. And it seemed like I had been out there for hours. I was only out there for about 5 minutes. That's the time it took me to walk from building to the overpass. And when I went to step around the barrier, my phone rang. And I looked at it, and it was Nick. And it scared me. And I answered the phone. I'm like, yes, ma'am. She was like, what's going on? I'm like, nothing. I'm looking because, she works downtown. I'm like, well, can't she see me? Like, what made her call me in that moment? And she's like, oh, nothing. I'm just calling to check on you. And I'm like, I'm okay. She's like, oh, what you doing? Mind you, I'm standing here at this overpass.
Right.
Cars are whooshing by north and south underneath the overpass. I'm getting ready to jump. And she asked me how I was doing, what was going on. I'm like, nothing. And we talked for about 5 or 10 minutes, and she got off the car and she said, I love you. I'll talk to you later. And I walked back to work. And it was at that moment I realized that there's something wrong. Um, I, I suffer with depression. I do. I absolutely do. Um, right
And
after that,
there's no shame in that. How about that? Like,
that but having like taking that statement from here to here, that was just in that moment just now was rough.
it's work. And a lot of what we grew up learning was you take it to Jesus. You just say your prayers and that'll make it better. And I'm not saying not to pray, and I'm not saying don't take it to Jesus, but I'm saying take it to Jesus and to a therapist, right?
Yeah.
Like, there are some situations for us where we need our medication, where we need our therapy more, and that's not to say that prayer is not a part of all of that,
Right.
but to suffer in silence. And I tell you this all the time, I see you. I remember when you shared this story, and I said there's always somebody asking for us to pray for them, and you say you will. That one time you forget could have been you, right, getting ready to jump. Or
Yeah.
that one time you didn't write it down so you could remember to call that person, or you just said yeah, and you didn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I'm consciously, when people say, Stephanie, can you pray for my mom, or can you pray for this, or can you pray for that, I do it right then and there first so that I don't forget, because I'm reminded of you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say, I tell you this all the time, I see you. Like, we need you. It's a reason that she knew to call, right?
Yeah.
If that wasn't God telling her right then and there, because if she hadn't called, you might have jumped.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so now let's go back before you put the your head to your mouth, to your
Yeah.
heart, to say, I suffer from depression. Why are you sad? Why are you depressed? Speak on it. What started it?
So, my mom has been sick since I was probably about 12 or 13. It was real slow. It was, oh, my arms hurt, my legs hurt. Long story short, she has rheumatoid arthritis.
Mm-hmm.
My mom stopped moving when I was in junior high school. So, the things that moms normally do with kids, so on and so forth. I watched it on TV, saw it with peers, so on and so forth. My dad worked full time. I have a Caribbean dad. So that affection or whatever, I absolutely did not get it from my dad. Not to say that my parents did. My parents love me. I am
Yes.
my father's moon star. We have the same birthday. But in the way that I needed my parents, they just weren't there.
Right.
Um, and so that sent me outside. As young folks say, I went outside and I kicked it my entire 20s. Baby, there was not a party day through that I missed. I was out Friday night. I was out Saturday night. and I would drag in church on Sunday morning. I'd be sitting outside on the front steps.
Nothing like everything else, but I'm here, Lord, I'm here.
Hey, Charles would be in that corner. He's like, baby, I don't know why you sitting out here. Come on in. I'm like, no, Pastor, I'll be in there. Like, no, come on in there.
Give me 2 seconds. I need some mouthwash and some perfume.
Give me 2 seconds. Just give me 2. And I would come on in there. But that was one thing that was always constant. Church was not optional. Even when I got grown and I was out in the world having fun, church was not optional. And like I said, once again, I'm grateful for growing up in the church, because during that season, I'm not even going to say it was 2 or 3 times. Stephanie, if I could tell you how many times where I should have been dead because I was somewhere where I shouldn't have been and stuff was going on in front of me. I've watched people been shot and die. Like, cause I was outside, you know what I mean? But I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
And it shatters the myth that you got to be perfect to be a church kid. You know, because we've all done our dirt. And the whole point is the church is for sick people. Like, you're not coming there because you're perfect. Jesus was the only person perfect. All of us make mistakes. We'll pretend that we don't know Deacon such and such drank or smoked, or, you know, whatever, all of the stuff that we look down upon or we claim is a sin. The one thing that's so powerful when we start to learn God for ourselves, there is no sin weighted more than another, right? We all out here making mistakes, whether you lied, whether you looked at your neighbor's husband sideways one time too many, whether you sent a text message that was inappropriate, whether you cussed, you know, because somebody cut you off in traffic. These little things become bigger things, but these human characteristics that we all carry, we think make us unable to either have hardship or heartache, or we think it makes us, the church is too judgmental because we're human. So we all kicked it in our 20s. Like, why we gotta lie? God knows, right? We all kicked it in our 20s. I went off to college and I wrote back to church. I had my Bible. I did what I was supposed to do, but I would share. So I had a party in my college apartment, and I had a giant trash can of Harry Buffalo. Kids don't make Harry Buffalo. I had a giant trash can, and I was not old enough to buy alcohol. So I sent a couple of my friends to go get it. And we're going to have a party. You put all of the alcohol in this garbage can. You cut up some fruit and you put all of that in the garbage can, and then you sell it for $2 a cup. Hello, I'm broke. I'm in college and we partying, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So had the party. The kicking was eternal. And then the party is over and my dad calls, hey, what you doing? This the next morning. What you doing? And I was like, you know, nothing. What you doing? Right? So he was like, we about 30 minutes away. What? Like, who just drives down? I was at OU. Who just gets in their car in the morning and drives down? And when I tell you it was like 8 o'clock when he called, that means y'all got on the road at like 4 or 5. Because God was telling you to come visit, I suppose. Other than that, I don't know why you would have. Before they get there, I called my best friend to help me clean up my apartment. Chicken bones in the bathtub. I mean, the kicker, it was everywhere. We partied. So my dad get there, the apartment like might smell like rubbing alcohol, but right, it was no remnants of the night before. My dad blows his nose and walks over to the garbage can to put the tissue in the garbage can. It's Harry Buffalo, all just, you know, the smell coming. My dad, oh Lord Jesus, my daughter alcoholic. Is this what I sent you to college? You know, they broke out the Bible, girl. When I tell you they prayed over us, Melanie is sitting there, my poor best friend, because she was sitting there like, I don't even go to church all like that, Mr. Gaines. And he was like, you about to sit here and get prayed on today. Like, so they sat there, my stepmom crying, they got to pray, and they leave you $40 and take you to get something to eat, and they drove back home. So something was clearly on their heart, because there's no reason you to go 4 hours for nothing. Yeah. And like, in my dad's defense, he had never been to college, right? So he just thought you're supposed to be sitting in the library studying all the time. But in our 20s, at least for college, I'll say, you get this safe space where you can kind of do whatever, and you're supposed to be able to learn in this bubble that keeps you protected. What we forget leaving church to go to college is to take God with us. What we forget is that my dad used to always say this, Lord, just keep her while she's stupid. But, and who knows how long that stupidity lasts? Like, you want to pretend it's just going to be from 18 to 22 and you're going to get it. We don't get it together for quite some time. So what I always loved about church was nobody, if they were making judgmental comments or they had thoughts about it, nobody said it to your face, I suppose. But I always felt like I could come home. That's what I was going to say. What I always loved about, like, no matter what you was doing Monday through Saturday, you knew you still had a home in church, and somebody was going to take you to the side and holler at you like, "Hey, what are you doing? I saw you at the club." And I'm like, "Wait, you saw me? What, were you at the club?" Like, but so we in the world. It's and you learn at a certain age that we're supposed to be not. We're not supposed to be of the world. We're supposed to be transformed, right? So we walking around in the world, but our light is supposed to be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that as a part of your grief, I know that you've suffered miscarriages. I know that you've had your heart broken.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let you speak on that part of your grief. But I know we can all relate to heartache and then how we find God in our grief.
One thing that I've learned in therapy in this past couple of weeks is grief looks like many things. So in my mind, grief was only just losing people, but situations changing, and everybody knows Keturah, I absolutely did not like change. I like things being the way they are. But I could say one of the biggest waves for me was my first miscarriage. For 10 years, I've been told you can't have kids, you can't have kids. I slipped and fell on a toothpick and I got pregnant, or banana, whatever they say. I was at the jungle gym, whatever they say, and I got pregnant and I was petrified. Lord, I was so scared. So I did my 1-2. My mom knew first. Keisha was second, and I went to go see A. Charles. Once I had gotten through that, because I ran from him for I don't know how many weeks I ran from him.
You ever notice when you used to try to run from Pastor Boyd, he would find you? He would call the house at 6 o'clock in the morning. He would find you, because if you ain't home at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's something wrong. And that's back when everybody had a landline. Like when he would call, he gonna find you.
None. But when I finally did go sit down with him, we were sitting in that new office that he had back there. And we were sitting across the table and I had my head down. He was like, "Well, what's going on? I got a meeting to go to." I said, "Pastor, I'm pregnant." And I double over on the floor, bawling, crying, boo-hoo, stop boogers or whatever. He was like, "That's all?"
Right. The world ain't gonna end, but like, you ain't the first person to have sex not married. You ain't the first person to get pregnant without a husband. Like, what you mean? Like, that's it. And you like,
what? I'm like, "Papa, I didn't want you to be disappointed in me and be mad at me." And the people in church, and before I could get that statement out, he was like, hold on. Yeah. First of all, if anybody in church says anything to you, come tell me.
That's right.
Said, you find a perfect person in this church, they can go ahead and run this church.
Right.
We had that conversation. Everything was good. Me and Keisha went back to the doctor a couple of weeks later. They couldn't find a heartbeat. So because I was so far along, they made me carry it to term. And I had the delivery or whatever. I had to set up in the hospital. I was in labor for 8 hours. So I was on the phone with him. He was calling every other hour. Nick was calling. Keisha was calling. And I finally delivered. I went to work 2 days later.
That's no time to grieve at all. None.
Because I had to keep going, Steph. I had to keep going.
That's what we tell ourselves. I understand.
6 months later, got pregnant. I was at work. My stomach was killing me. I said, "God, we're not about to do this again. We're not about to do this again." I was cool. Went about another couple hours at work. And I'm like, "Nah, I got to go to the doctor." Ended up hemorrhaging at the hospital. They sent me to another hospital. I was hemorrhaging again. They sent me to Hillcrest. I end up passing the baby there. They sent me a $2,000 transportation bill from that visit. I said, "Thank you. I appreciate this wonderful healthcare system." Fast forward to another year. I was pregnant. I knew I was pregnant, but I'm like, you know what? I know how the last two went. I'm not even going to get my hopes up. Went to Congress. We competed. Congress is amazing. Great. We came back home that Sunday. I actually passed the baby in the toilet at church before we went to go drill.
Wow.
Put my uniform back on.
Wow.
Drill, went home. Went
Wow.
to work the next day. They end up letting me go from my job because I had reported some Medicaid fraud at work. They let me go. 3 weeks later, I had another job. So I kept going, I kept going, I kept going, I kept going. Got into the field that I'm in now. And I'm wondering, like, that, why do I take my job so serious working with these people with kids? Why do I take my job so serious? And why am I so angry in the work that I'm doing? Like, I love the work that I'm doing, but I'm angry. And I'm like, maybe you depressed. I'm like, nah, I ain't depressed. Ain't nothing wrong with me. We go look back at last year. I got that call. I was at work. I'll never forget it. Brandon called me. He like, friend, you sitting down? And I'm like, no. Nah. He was like, he gone. And I literally watched time stand still. The man who was everything.
To most of us. To most of us.
If there hadn't been such an age gap, I would have said Pastor would have been my friend.
Oh yeah, he was you know, it's so funny to even tell people about the type of person Pastor Bowie was for us, because I always share, you know, I went to Columbus, got married, got pregnant, so Pastor couldn't be in Columbus. When I had my daughter, he left me a voicemail. He blessed my house here. You know, when I came back to church, came back home, left my husband, got a divorce, came back home. He was the first person to welcome me back, you know, talking to my parents and what could she get back to church, and his presence in our lives sort of make it difficult for us to actually have male partners and companionship too, because he set the bar so high for what a man is supposed to be for you and do for you, and how, you know, how the relationship is supposed to work. But the other thing that he taught us as women, because he had 5 daughters, the other thing that he taught us as women was to never settle, and that we were worth so much more than we allowed for ourselves. Like there's so much we accepted and we internalized that wasn't our burden. But yeah, I still got his picture in my living room and still talk to him every day. I ain't gonna lie. Hey Pastor, how you doing? Right? Like, or when I need a word, like we all do it. We all do it. But that was, you know, in a part of what you were talking about, you kept telling yourself that you were not depressed. And there are a number of medical studies that will show you that society says Black women handle more stress than any other woman in any other race. Mm-hmm. Not only that, our bodies are sort of genetically altered after a certain point because we have managed stress for so long. Mm-hmm. I started to look at her name is Gabby. I'm gonna mess up her last name. The little white girl that was killed by her fiance when they went on vacation. Yes. And I stayed wondering why she gets so much news attention when, you know, we got 100,000 Black girls that's been missing, you know, in multiple cities for some time, and let alone like Black men too. But what is so special about her that she warrants CNN and news coverage and, you know, that kind of stuff, and you never hear about these other people. Mm-hmm. So then I started to think, I don't know if it's society, I don't know if it's other women, I don't know if it's other women of color that sort of teach us that we have to bear all of this alone, right? Mm-hmm. You feel shamed for being depressed. You feel like we feel like we got to be superwoman all the time. Mm-hmm. So when something happens that says that I'm not perfect, or I can't be superwoman, or in this moment, in this space, I'm empty, I don't have it to give right now. Why we feel so deficient when we say, wait a minute, let me take a time out and look after me for 2 seconds. Like the majority of us need therapy. I told you know, before the pandemic, 1 out of 5 people suffer from mental illness. It ain't no telling where we are now. And that's not even talking about people of color. Mm-hmm. But I know in hearing you and listening to you, I do that too. No, I'm not depressed. I just need to stay busy. I just need to keep, and I got it in my mind to this day. I just got to get through my daughter's birthday party and then I can take a break or take a time out. We don't even make a mental health day, you know, we don't make room for it. Like you wait till you got a break. Why should you wait till your body or your mind tells you to sit down? Because you can't make time in your day to sit down. Mm-hmm. So go on. You were telling you after all of this, you then learned that our pastor had passed.
Yeah. So lost pastor. I was in a cloud for a solid 6 months. And then General Alexis, the creator of Drill Team, he died.
Yep.
Oh my God, oh, you trying to punk me. That's what this is. Like, I had, when he died, I had nothing to give, Stephanie. Like, I was sad I couldn't cry.
Empty.
And then because of COVID, we couldn't fly down for the funeral. I had
Right.
to watch them funeralize this man on Zoom at work. Got it together. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. July 5th, my best friend, my cousin, shot down, murdered in broad daylight. Wrong place, wrong time. They were shooting at somebody else and they shot him. You know what I mean? And I was so angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I just told Hosea the other day, I had not done anything in my house since July 5th. I've been going to work, popping in church, getting on Zoom every now and then. I've been functioning
Right.
since July 5th.
But barely. Right.
I do
Going through
enough
the
at work
motions.
to where people leave me alone. I pop on Zoom, for youth ministry just enough, I text my cousins every now and then so they don't have to hold Keturah because everybody was worried about me or whatever. I'm not gonna say was because I still am. I'm so angry. I'm hurt. I'm mad at my cousin for being there.
Right.
Just been at home. I'm mad at myself because I was supposed to run into him earlier in that day. And I'm like, well, if I'd have ran into him, maybe he and I would have still have been together. And he wouldn't have been there.
Right.
And then the way he got killed, he died by himself on the ground, Stephanie. And I'm like, I just hope he knew it. I loved him. You know what I mean? And even going to his funeral, it didn't seem real. Like I was like July 4th, we were all at my house. And that next day, he was just gone.
Right.
A week before his 40th birthday.
Right.
He wasn't in the streets, Stephanie. He wasn't in the world, man, worked a regular job. You know what I mean? It was over 400 people at his funeral. This is a regular man. And I was just so angry. I'm like, God, and this is not good for me to say, but of all the people, there are some wicked people walking this earth. And you just took my cousin for no reason. And it's something that I still struggle with it every day. Like I said, I've only been in therapy for 2 weeks. And even she asked me, she's like, so what made you come?
I'm so proud of you for going.
It hurts.
You know what? In this space, in this season, because there's people have been dying around us left and right, family members, church members, I was asked by someone the other day, like, what's your rock bottom? Because I can share, I go to therapy too. What's your rock bottom? Like, what made you knew you need to talk to somebody? And it's part of like what you just said. We have questions. I remember speaking, because we talked about Pastor Bowie, when my aunt passed away when I was 9. Like, she had a husband, she had 2 kids. Like, what is up with this? She was 33 years old. And I remember going to Pastor like, well, I'm confused. Like, I got questions. I'm mad. I'm sad. Like, and he pulled out the Bible and I was like, before you read the scripture, I'm feeling this, right? Why does God do this? If God loves us so.
Yeah.
And you know what he said to me? Death is the one thing in life that we are all guaranteed to experience. And it's no timetable, right? But that's before he went to the scripture on me. It's no timetable. You don't get to say how, when, who, nothing, right? In our minds, we can say how we want to die, right? We make plans. God laughs at our plans.
Yes.
And I started to think about, because right now I have my cousin's husband is in ICU battling for his life with COVID, and he's got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I'm praying, God, I need you to heal him. He needs to be here for his family. Now, we all know that ain't my call to make.
Yeah. But
I start to, you and I talked about, there was a young man murdered the other day, a couple weeks ago, rather. What is there something about how we die that's supposed to matter more so than the fact that we are gone, right? We don't get to say if I got 40 years left or if I'm only going to be here for 2 minutes right before I pass away. Mm-hmm. In this, we do know, because we're smart people, we do know that with grief comes anger, it comes, questioning how many times lawyer mom over here done cross-examine God on something before he done finally told me, like, I done said what I said, right? You asking me mad, you asking me happy, you ask like that, it doesn't change the answer. There's no good enough answer for why your cousin was murdered. There's no good enough answer for why you didn't get to keep your baby. There's no answer for questions like these. But in our grief, how do we work through the pain of it so that we can use it to better ourselves and other people, right? In this space, I tell you, I see you all the time. I remember laughing, happy, Keturah, right? And you shake your head like, I don't know who that is. And I told you, you are in your cocoon right now. You are in a season of grief. I'm so proud of you for reaching out for therapy, because that's like,
yeah.
I mean, all right, I'll be real with you this way. We have all tried to self-medicate.
For sure.
Some people use alcohol, some people use weed, some people, right? We have all tried it on. Some people use sex, some people use right? We've all social media, we have all tried to binge on something because we have something empty in us. For whatever reason, it got there. I'm dealing with an empty space, Lord, and I keep trying to fill it with something else. That's what grief is. It's a big hole. And so now I have this big hole. How do I heal this? Because the reality is, I'm not looking for Keturah to be the Keturah she was 5 years ago. You were never supposed to be that anyway. You got to grow. You got to mature, right? You got to start feeding your soil so the new plants can grow in that space. So the 5 years ago, Keturah, I don't want her. I'm looking for the butterfly. And what caused you to go into your cocoon is ugly. It's hurtful. It is the type of grief and pain that most people can't put words to. So when I tell you I see you and I'm proud of you, it's because I hear you. You being able to put voice to hurt and pain that a lot of people would just sit around and say, you suck it up, deal with it, keep going to work, put one foot in front of the other, right? It's a test until you can give you a testimony. And don't you be sometimes like, Lord, I'm sick of being tested. I had enough of this one. Please, right? And then in this space, what prayer do you say? What took you to therapy? How did you get there? 2 weeks, sis. How did you get there?
How did I get there?
Because there's somebody sitting somewhere right now doing just what you did before. No, I'm not depressed. But what did you just say? You ain't done nothing in your house since July.
July 5th.
Like there are things that we can pinpoint on our day-to-day activities that we're like, oh, I'm not eating. Oh, I didn't take a shower. Oh, I'm not cleaning my house. Those are all obvious signs of depression, right? But from July to October, right? That's where you live. And how many times I text you and tell you, we ain't got to talk. I'll just come to your house and sit, right? And then I got a friend of mine, her mom just passed away, and she wants help cleaning up her mom's belongings because she doesn't want to walk through them every day and be reminded. So I offer, I'll come help you clean up, sis. And if she made an excuse about, my house is kind of, because that's what y'all do. Because you think you're gonna offend me being in your space of grief if I see how you live before you get it back together. Let it go. Yeah. You afraid to show people what's really going on means you're not ready for help yet. But something took you to therapy 2 weeks ago. So tell me what.
Like I said, I can't say do. I do. I wake up angry every day. I wake up sad every day. So funny. About a month before my cousin got killed, I went and got this tattoo. Can you see it? The semicolon.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I see it.
So that is a suicide awareness tattoo. I'm right-handed, so every time I go to write, my wrist, it always turns over. And I intentionally did that. But like I said, I wake up angry every single day. And I'm just like, I'm tired. So I was having those same thoughts that I was having that day when I was out, that feeling, rather, not the thoughts, the feeling that led me to the overpass that day. And I went full-fledged with it. I had a full process. I'm like, I got this job, it's decent. I know my life insurance is good. Mommy and daddy will be okay.
You making plans for to die.
Listen, so I went full-fledged stuff. I'm like, well, Jose, I'm my best friend. He'll know what to do. He'll make sure Cash preach. Rock of Ages is my favorite song. They're gonna have the good ushers out there. I know Miss Ford gonna take care of the repast because she know I love church chicken and church spaghetti. I'm like, Miss Ford gonna do this. I'm like, we gonna have this, everything gonna be fine. I'm gonna be out there at Lakeview with Pop. I had the full thought in my head. And my mother called me, FaceTime. My mother FaceTime me every morning. She's like, what you doing still laying in the bed? Don't you gotta go to work? I'm like, nah, I don't think I'm gonna go in. I'm not gonna use the words that she used, but it was get up out of the bed.
Oh, I know what she told you. I know what she told you.
It was get up and go ahead to bed. And then I had talked to Keish later in the day, and she's like, what did you call that therapist? I'm like, I'm about to be calling that lady. I don't feel like. She's like, call her. Just go ahead and call her. And I called her, and her books have been filled all year. And her books opened up. And I went.
Because who opened her books? Okay.
I'm not gonna shout because my
neighbor. Okay. Because you know God did it. That's all I'm gonna say. Okay.
And I went and I sat down with the woman. I don't even remember what happened our first session, Stephanie. And I remember getting up off of the couch, and she said, "I'll see you next week." And Keturah was like, "Yeah, okay." And before I left, she made me schedule this week's appointment. And and I shared what happened with you before I walked in this week's session. Keturah of 2 weeks ago would have canceled this week. But instead of me doing an hour in therapy, I sat for 2 hours in therapy today. I can't tell you right now that I feel better.
Right.
Something's different.
Right.
Something is different. I still can't drive down Kinsman without thinking about my cousin. I still, can't get through a day without thinking about Pastor. I see kids, so on and so forth, and it still pricks my heart a little bit, but something is different.
Yes.
In these last 2 weeks, something is different. So I said, I will be there next Monday. We scheduled next Monday's appointment. I'll be there next Monday. So that's what it was. Waking up every day just empty. I can say I know what it's like to be alone in a room full of people.
Yeah. And I used to say that. I feel like I'm in a room full of people and I'm screaming at the top of my lungs and nobody can hear me. I used to say that all the time. It's one of those things because you're not alone because you're surrounded by people, but you are so lonely because nobody there can pour into you or can say what you need to hear at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly I can look at it and say at that time you feel like you're alone because you're really just supposed to be communing with God. Like that's one thing that we don't get early enough to know. Mm-hmm. When you're in a space, in a crowd, and you feel like you're by yourself, that's because you're just supposed to be listening to God. God has something specifically to say to you. Like, especially because, we're in church and stuff. A lot of times we feel like the message is so personal, but sometimes the messenger doesn't always have to be, the pastor when it's that I'm here and I'm alone and it's, about to make me cry because we've all had that moment where I won't say that I considered suicide, but I know that I considered I'm not doing something right. Yeah. I don't know what I'm here for. I don't know how am I gonna do this mother thing, right? Like, I know that I have definitely asked questions about why we're here, why I'm here, what my purpose is.
Yeah.
In a space that's not always, happy. Mm-hmm. Especially, when somebody passes away, you start to look at the effect, like talking about Pastor, how heavy he was in our lives, how big he was for us. And it's such a loss because he was beyond a pastor, he was family, right? You knew the best thing about Pastor Rui for me was no matter where I was, I moved to California, like no matter where I was, you can call and he would answer the phone. Like it wasn't, let me send you to, talk to such and such about that. And then I'll get back to you. No, he would drop everything to talk to you. You mattered in that moment because he knew that God has something for you. Like your life has purpose for a reason, and you don't know what it is yet. But I know Stephanie, I know Keturah, right? And so, especially with that void gone, I feel more inclined to listen to the voice that tells us that we have to do that for young people too,
Yeah.
right? So, like, I'm telling you that because I don't want to grieve your death. I want to celebrate your life. I want you to know, like I told you, it's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it might look far, but the light is there. I see you. You have to be here. It's not your time to go. So all of the questions that we have, well, you know, if I was with him, would that have changed? That's not a weight for you to carry. It's not your burden. But you know what is your burden? What is your work? What is yours to do is to heal your heart. Because you cannot keep opening up and giving from an empty space. You keep giving, you keep pouring, you keep trying. You wonder why you're mad at the folks at work. You wonder why you're mad at them kids, right? Because you're giving from a place of emptiness. And at some point, I just said this, we always do this. Hi, love me, let me help you. At some point, we got to do this. So for this season, you got to guard your heart and do your healing. I love that you're going and you said it feels different. It should feel lighter because every time you open up and talk, you're letting it, quite frankly, you slapping the devil in the face. But every time you let some of it go, it becomes less heavy. And it ain't no deadline for that. I can't tell you December of this year, December of next year. You might be in therapy for the rest of your life. And guess what? So what? Do the work, one foot in front of the other. And I want you to know there's no shame in any of it. There's no shame in being hurt. There's no shame in grief. There's no shame. We talk about this all the time too, how we used to go to church and folks would say, you know, how like you were afraid to go to church because you thought some of them ladies was gonna say something about you being pregnant and not being married. Like they're like your mistakes are on full display for everybody to judge. And church is supposed to be a place where sick people come to get healed. So we're supposed to be too busy working on our own problems to be judging you and yours. Absolutely. But if I can't lend a shoulder to you while you in pain, I ain't a Christian. A Christian can't love God and hate people. We can dislike people sometimes. Right? And for sure, like we've been in situations where the judgment is so heavy. But part of what I felt called to do this podcast is because there's hope. And we're supposed to be teaching people that. And hope doesn't necessarily have to look like what we think it looks like. You give me hope. Every single time you share your story and you talk about wanting to feel better, it reminds me that everybody ain't got it all together. Some people are just going through the motions, but I will stand next to you and go through the motions with you for as long as you need. I appreciate it. It's no point in us being sisters in Christ. It's no point in us growing up in the church together if I'm just gonna watch you fumble, fall, cry, and fail, and then I'm gonna judge you and step over you. That ain't what we learn.
It happens too often in church, though.
It happens too often in church, in home, our friends, right? In life in general. So if you can be a light for somebody, I can be a light for you. We have no business. We know how much it bothered us in church. We know how much it bothered us at home. We know how much it bothered us in school. We have no business doing the same things that bothered us. So I want to see your face in church, whether it's on Zoom or whether it's in person. And man, we'll step over folks together to heal. So be it.
It's funny that you say that. I went to the first service we had back at church. I can honestly sit here and tell you, I have no clue why I went. I absolutely did not. I can tell you it was the Holy Spirit. It was not Keturah Thompson. Absolutely. That's why when you text me, like, I see you in church. I'm like, baby, you just don't know.
I see you. That's what I said. I see you.
If I tell you, Cash spoke to me so bad, I couldn't even sit down good while I was in church. It's completely honest. I'm very transparent about this. I had written church off after Pastor. I was done. I absolutely was done. And had a conversation with myself. I felt that I was not being loyal to A. Charles by accepting Brian A. Cash. And I was dead wrong. And I was being disobedient because oh God, I'm about to cry again. Our last conversation, I was having a horrible day at work. And he had already been retired for a year. He called me at work. I just called to check on you to see how you was doing. And
He had a way of doing that.
I said, I'm good. Notice folks always checking on me. I guess I ain't been okay for a long time.
No, baby, that's what God in your life means. That's what God in your life does. We call to check on you. We text to check on you. We email you to check on you because that's what we do. We family regardless. That's the point of all of this.
Yeah, I said I'm okay, sir. He was like, okay, I just called to check on you, and I love you, and be good, and you be good. And Sister Boy in the background, she said, "You be sweet now. You be nice." Here she goes. She goes, "You be nice to that boy now."
Right. Don't be giving him no grief.
Keisha FaceTimed me that following Saturday. She was over there. She said, "I got somebody I want you to see," and she said, "Don't start crying." I'm like, "Ain't nobody about to." And she turned the camera, and it was the two of us sitting at the table, Stephanie. And I go, oh, I'm crying already. And we talking, and they finished the conversation. And she said, "You be sweet to that boy now." And he looks at me. He said, "You be good now." And I said, "Oh, dang, ain't that mean?"
They were so such a.
And they said it again. He said, "You be sweet to that boy now." And I said, "Okay, I will. And I thought about that Friday before last when I registered for church. So, in sitting in church on Sunday, church was amazing. Monday, I don't know what got up in me. I said, I got to do more. Lord, I'm available to you. Use me, Lord, to show someone the way. So I led prayer call on Tuesday. Wednesday, I don't know what got into me. I said, I've got to do more in this church. I've got to come back to church. Reached out to Cass, shared some ideas. He said, "This is what I want you to do. I want you to type up an agenda and get it back to me." I tell you, I sent this man a 2-page agenda.
There you go.
2-page agenda of me offering my services, my community services to the church, to be a resource to the community. Community has always been my passion. I grew up in Ward 6. I'm from 93rd and Cedar. I'm from the hood that the church sits in. You know what I mean? And it has always been on my heart to do the work of the ministry in that community. We have one of the highest lead levels. We have one of the highest illiteracy rates, the unemployment, the sexual abuse. So many of my high school graduating friends still live in that neighborhood, and now they doing the shuffle because they're addicted to everything, stuff that we didn't even know Black kids did. You know what I mean? So I want to be available. I want to do the work of the ministry in the community. So he and I are going to meet tomorrow about what the plan is. You know what I mean? I want to bring shoes and clothes for kids to the neighborhood. I want to bring toys for tots to the neighborhood to take the burden and the relief off of the church. You know what I mean? Let these organizations help us do the work. I want to do that. So
do you
back at church.
do you know, and do you feel, or can you feel how when you say just make me available with what I have, look at how much you were able to accomplish? Like, I know we think we got to set big goals. Like you said earlier, I didn't graduate from college because I didn't want to. Like, and I ain't saying college ain't necessary for folks, but I think that what we give ourselves to speaks to who we are. So your heart is in service, right? Your heart is also in turmoil. So how do we heal that heart to be able to give? And part of it, because you and I, we came from the same church, part of what we learned too is while we're in the middle of our grieving season, to give, because that actually helps us take the focus off of what hurts, and it places the focus on giving, right? Which is what we're supposed to do, and helping other people in need. So your service heart is bigger than your sadness, right? Even in your period of healing, you have it in your mind to take your heart and give, right? Because that's what we learn. Because that's being a Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is, top to bottom, when you break it down. Treat people how you want to be treated, right? And when it's my turn to be in a situation, I'm hurting and I'm grieving, try not to kick me in the face. That's kind of really all we asking, right? Like,
Tell me I
never
should
sit
be
down.
over it by now because my cousin died in July and it's October.
No, don't no. There's no I should be over it by now. Every
Or
time
he was
somebody
just
mentions
your
Pastor
pastor.
Bowie,
I heard that the other day.
somebody
He,
no.
don't worry, she won't say it again.
Your grieving cycle is yours. Can't nobody name that for you. Just because it took such and such 3 seconds to get over this, or such and such might be still grieving for 10 years. But if your grieving is yours, that's personal. Don't ever give that away. Nobody can put a timetable on that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like every time we mention Pastor, our eyes still water up. So, right, like it's no timetable. How people touch your life and affect your spirit. That's your personal, that's yours. Like we give away our time, we give away our service, but like our personal journey, right? Like, can't nobody put a time limit on how long you get to be sad about somebody's passing. That's yours and yours alone.
Absolutely.
And
we were in the cemetery at my cousin's funeral. We were in the cemetery, and my cousin preacher, Reverend Jerry Gates, we were walking to the gravesite, and I don't know what made him say something to me. He was like, "You okay, Keturah?" I'm like, "No, I'm not." And I'm like, I wish people would stop telling me it'll get better. You know how they'll say by and by we'll understand it better. I said, Candy, will we really ever understand it? And he says, we probably
no.
And
And
I appreciate him.
it was the truth. It was the truth. When my grandmother died, and I remember people kept saying it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And I remember saying to my grandfather, well, it's not. It's not going to be okay. It's never going to be okay. Like, why do they keep saying that? And he said, we just have to make this time be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like not them leaving, not them dying, right? That will never resonate. That will never sit right with us. But in this new space of life without that person, we have to learn to make that okay, because the person who passed away does not want you still sitting here, right? You can't move forward because you miss them so much. That's not what the person that passed away wants from us. So at some point in our grief, after we question God, after we get mad, after we get sad, there's some point in our grief where we want to honor the legacy of that person's life. That's what we get to. And I think that is the part that is okay. But not that, time heals all wounds. I can't stand when people say that. Like, it's just, it sounds good. But also, that's something like we talked about earlier. When you get to be 70 and 80 and you done lived through just about everything, you can say time heals, right? Everything is not at that stage. You done been through it all and it ain't broken. But it don't help when I'm 20, I'm 30, and I'm 40, and I got real heartache. Just to give us the old Negro spirituals no, that don't. But we come from Black culture. We come from a history where not only did our men and women not do therapy, we didn't acknowledge that it was real hurt, pain, heartache, grief, and right? You didn't do that. You cried on Friday and you went back to work on Monday. So we are in a completely different time now too, where you can take time, you can still do work, you can still give at the church, and you can still do therapy, right? The idea of, my mom said when I was pregnant, big belly, 5 months pregnant, and I left my ex-husband. And I was sad for obvious reasons, right? And my mom said, we don't have time for all that. And I was like, well, where do I put it? And she was like, you have to make sure you stay stress-free so you can have a happy baby. And I was like, stress-free is the exact opposite of what I'm right of my situation right now. And I remember I looked at her and I said, you know what? That's dysfunctional. Like, I understand, like my mom has her generation, when you had heartaches or divorces or miscarriages, you didn't have time to take a minute to cry and deal and heal. But that's part of the problem. If you don't heal it, if you don't heal that last cut, you're going to bleed on the next person who didn't cut you. That's whether it's a man-female relationship, whether it's church hurt, right? You're going to take it out on everybody because you hurting and you ain't dealt with it. So in this generation and for this season, you have the ability to get help, extend help, right? That's so important for us because we talk about what we want to teach the next generation of Christian women, right? You do not have to shoulder it all alone. You do not have to suffer in silence. You do not have to be afraid to be human so that you can get help and continue to be accessible and a valuable resource in the church, in your community, at your job, to your family. Look at all these hats you wearing. And somebody gonna tell you how long you get to grieve. You got 3,000 other things you focusing on too, on top of, I miss that person who passed away, right? Sitting in a crowded room feeling alone. No, you know, if nothing else, I'll be in the back corner. Like, you ain't never really alone. Never, never.
Yes, yes, yes.
Never.
Through those thoughts is the hardest part. Keisha literally texts me and calls me every day.
Somebody needs to.
If I go too long, I'll get a threatening text like, don't make me pull up. Like, don't.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. And I've said that. I told you my one friend, her mom passed away. I said, I got your address. I can just pull up. Like, you gonna keep pushing me off because you know you feeling some kind of way. It's not our job as your sisters in Christ, your sisters in general. It's not our job to see you with your head barely above water and walk by and push you down or kick some water in your face. It's our job to swim up next to you in a boat, right? Or pull up next to you in a boat until you decide you got enough strength to get in it.
Yeah.
I can't pull you up. You got to pull you up, but I will be right here while you do your work. And so from here until infinity, she gonna text you, I'm gonna text you, because that's what we supposed to do, right? Yeah. And matter of fact, on the day you don't hear from one of us, you need to text us and make sure we okay.
Yeah.
Because that's how the relationship is supposed to work. Bear ye one another's burdens. You are not in this alone. I see you getting to you, right? Not the you were, but the you that you are becoming, because she is so important. She is the person that's gonna help me with my little person, right? When she decided after I got her in church 6 days out of 7, like we had to grow up. Wait till COVID over. We had choir practice, we had drill team practice. My mom used to be like, how many times you gonna go to church this week?
She ain't never been to 5:30 BTU.
BTU, Sunday school. But the reality is church was so foundational for us. Regardless of what happened in our lives, don't you see we all came back? You came back with a new pastor. I came back with a baby, right? We all came back. Now, it's not coincidence. It's not because churches fly by night or we don't like religious folks. That's not what it is. It's because the foundation of what we learned about how to be women, how to be Christians, how to be supporters, and how to be partners. We got that foundation from the church. And it's important for us to kind of continue, because there are things that happened in church where we were growing up for sure that we did not appreciate, didn't approve of. We want to make sure that doesn't happen for the younger generation. And moving us forward, we can only do that. We can't rely on our folks who's 70, 80, and 90 to keep trying to, hold on to a torch. If they're not going to pass it to us, we're going to have to take
it. I'm gang. I'm all in.
All right, let's pray us out, because I know you have another meeting. I so appreciate you taking the time to just share your heart in this space and be open to healing and being blessed and sharing your hope, because I love you so. And I just want you to know I pray for you. I pray over you, and I will continue to email and text you and make sure you're okay.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I do, Stephanie. I do. You don't remember this. You and I were at a resource fair at Harvey Rice 2 years ago. When I say once again, you walked up to me and you asked me how I was doing it, and I was like, I'm fine. And he was like, how you doing? And I'm like, I'm fine. And then once again, I started bawling, crying. And he was like, it's okay not to be okay. And
it is. It is absolutely okay not to be okay.
And I thank you so much for that statement. I'm not about to cry again. Go ahead and press that so I can go.
Dear gracious and eternal God, we want to thank you in this moment for just allowing us to take a pause and to hear from you. We acknowledge you in our spaces of grief, in our spaces of confusion, hurt, agony, and anger. And we acknowledge you and praise you in this space, because we know the things that you are doing for us right here and right now are going to resonate through this church, through other generations, through other women, to other people, to just touch hearts, to make sure that there are people who know what it means to be a Christian, and how you are supposed to feel when you are sharing stories of grief with your sisters. We ask that you just touch our hearts, bless our families, bless those who are in bereavement right now. And we ask that you continue to allow people a free and safe space to share when they are depressed, when they are sad, when they are unhappy, and when they are hopeless, because we know you can touch all hearts and change all situations. I ask that you continue to bless Keturah in her journey. Thank you so much, Lord, for the gift of therapy. And I ask that you will allow us to leave this space happier than we came, and know that we always have someone to share our heart and our grief with. Amen.
I love it.